Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video and welcome to the penultimate round of our F124 Mercedes Driver Career Mode. Yes, we're back this weekend here in Qatar, round 15 of the season, and boy oh boy is there still a lot to be decided between now and the final laps in Abu Dhabi. Of course, if you missed out on the video that went live a few days ago from Las Vegas, I would highly recommend going back and checking out. It was one of the weirdest races I think I've ever had inside F124. I'm still not quite sure how we ended up finishing where we did, but yeah, it has meant that the championship has taken another significant twist. Just like I said, 2 rounds to go of the campaign, 60 points available as we head into Qatar this weekend, and there are still 5 drivers with a shot at the crown. However, we could walk away this weekend as world champion. We have a 23-point buffer over Lando, Norris. George Russell and Fernando Alonso, they need a bit of a miracle here if they're going to keep the title fight going into the final round there. And Verstappen, he basically needs us to not finish this race and hope that he wins if he wants to keep his title hopes alive into the season finale. Of course, it is a sprint though, so there are double the opportunities to try and score points here as well. But I'm a little bit worried. If you've watched any of my series, either on F124 or on F123, Mercedes, for whatever reason, have zero reliability here in Qatar. Now, I've done every upgrade we possibly can to the car, so I'm hoping that that isn't going to be an issue this weekend, but if I was a betting man and I had to say one weekend this year in the Mercedes where I thought we would have a mechanical failure, this would be that weekend. Of course, if you're new, please do consider getting yourself subscribed as well. We're trying to get as close as we can to 140,000 subs by the end of the year. 2024, a massive thank you to all of you guys for the support right the way throughout. I've learned a lot and I cannot wait for 2025 to bring you guys even more content. But anyway, let's head out then here to Losail.
Today is all about the rhythm, all about the flow, because it's qualifying in Qatar. We're under the floodlights for a high-speed test that will set the grid for tomorrow. Wherever you are in the world, you're very welcome.
Well, I've got no idea how well this track is going to suit us this weekend. Like I said, I'm just so nervous we're going to have a mechanical failure, but hopefully we can try and get through without too many major problems. I'd like to think this track should suit us. Obviously, it is weirdly a very, very high downforce venue, which has been one of this car's strong points all year long. It's the front-end responsiveness through some of these high-speed stuff. That's really where this car kind of comes alive. And there are a lot of corners that really are dependent on that this weekend. I think, honestly, for us, it's just about trying to knock as many drivers out of the championship fight as we can. Obviously, last season, we went into Abu Dhabi going up against Max Verstappen. This season, probably more likely it's going to be a couple of the McLaren cars, or maybe Fernando Alonso as well. But the fact that 3 of the Mercedes-powered teams are still in the hunt is quite impressive towards the end of the year. Of course, we're also obviously battling it out with Red Bull in the constructors still, and maybe if Aston Martin had a bit of a disaster, we could try and get close to them. You can see not too far away from Lando Norris as we make our way into Sector 3. Of course, all of these corners easily flat out in this car there, but it's probably the same for that McLaren as well there. Maybe just not through the penultimate one as we throw the car through. One more turn to go then. Let's try and get the power down nice and tidy on the exit there. Struggle a little bit with the throttle pickup. Will it be good enough for P1 though? Yes, it is! Well, by 4 thousandths of a second then, we have claimed pole position here in Qatar, ready for the sprint race there. 18 thousandths covering your top 3. And again, your top 5 in the championship are going to be your top 5 on the grid here. Hamilton will line up in P6, so hopefully he can act as a bit of a rear gunner for us as well. But I tell you what, as qualifying efforts go, that one is probably one of my best all year. We know we are good through that final sector. Let's just see if we can try and win the sprint.
So it is all about speed in today's sprint. Not very many laps and no chance to get ahead on strategy. Who here today has the raw skill to take them to the top? Losail International was built in 2004, 3.3 miles, 16 turns with just 1 DRS zone, but it's a long straight and there's plenty of high-speed overtaking opportunities through the corners. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. Firestarter lines up on pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Fernando Alonso, Verstappen, Hamilton, Stroll, Perez, Oscar Piastri, Sainz, Tsunoda, Fittipaldi, Ocon, Behrman, Ricciardo, Albon, Gasly, Zhou, Iwasa and Frederic Vesti. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint.
Well, here we are then, down on the grid, ready for Sprint Race Saturday. 8 points here. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it could really, really help us as we head through the final couple of rounds of the year. Obviously, only 3 sprint races this campaign. I would love to know whether they have actually affected anything in terms of the championship order come the final race in Abu Dhabi as well there. But all we need to do today is try and hang on throughout these 10 laps. Starting on the medium tyre, looks like everybody has gone the same way. It is 5 red lights here on the grid. And it's going to be lights out and away we go. There a rocket getaway from Lando Norris alongside me. Not too surprised that he's going to get the lead straight away down towards turn 1. Will George Russell try and follow him in there? The former Mercedes driver banging wheels with us through turn 2. And we're just getting a little bit pinched out early on. So you've got plenty to lose still between now and the end of the campaign there. So we will slot down into P3 then. I mean, Verstappen, he's the big one. What is he going to do to try and keep his hopes alive throughout the rest of the weekend? I mean, all of these guys know they need to outscore us. Lando Norris, admittedly, could afford to lose 1 point to me before the final race of the season. But yeah, everybody knows what is at stake now. Nobody wants to be the one kind of knocked out of it before the finale. I mean, a 5-car scrap. And obviously, weirdly, the last time around there was a 4-car scrap in 2010. Obviously, well, it was 5 cars heading into the penultimate round of the year. Jenson Button still had an outside shot at the world title in 2010 with 2 rounds to go. He was obviously knocked out of it before they got to Abu Dhabi. So could we see that from obviously one of the McLaren drivers this year? Because that season it ended up being both Red Bulls of Mark Webber, Sebastian Vettel, obviously Lewis Hamilton at McLaren, and then Fernando Alonso down at Ferrari this season. Well, still both McLarens are in it. There's still a Red Bull in it. But no Ferrari, an Aston Martin and a Mercedes. So, I mean, it's only 15 years ago, but boy oh boy, times have really, really changed. But we survived the opening lap. That's the most important bit early on. Tyres do still feel very cold here. Let's just try and take it nice and easy. Oh, here we go. George Russell trying to have a look to the inside of his teammate Lando Norris. So clearly there is no kind of teamwork going on down at McLaren then. Both of their drivers have been told, well, I guess as long as you don't take each other out, you know, you've got pretty much equal odds at the world title. I assume, obviously, if Russell gets knocked out of it this weekend, then it will be all about trying to help Lando Norris in the bigger picture. But for us at the moment, I'm happy to let them battle in front. But Lando Norris has had a few torrid races in recent times, only helped by that victory in Brazil. But he again is going to try and look past his teammate through those first couple of corners. Russell, though, not afraid to get the elbows out. Of course, there's no bonus point for fastest lap in the sprint, but all of us want to get it. I mean, look at this. Your top 5 in the championship, nose to tail, covered by 0.8 of a second. We're all pulling away from the rest of the order. I mean, us 5 this year have been in a different league. We've all tripped over each other at various times, but what a story it has been. Lando just made a little bit of a wobble there at the final turn, so we will try and get the run on him then, as he's going to try and get the run on George Russell as well. I mean, Russell's going to really try and squeeze us towards the inside line. We're 3 wide for the lead of the GP then. Norris tries to hook it up the long way around. We just about get our car slowed down on the apex there to make sure we don't drift wide into him. Oh, this is what sprints should be all about there. Great wheel-to-wheel racing early on, as we just can't quite hang the nose up the inside of Lando at the top of the hill. But he is back into P1. Well, here we go, lap 7 then. Only 4 more left of this sprint, and we are going to try and make the move then into the lead of the GP. We know where that McLaren car is strong around most of the lap. Luckily, we have opted for a fair amount of straight line speed here, and it is still working for us. We definitely have got the advantage through the twisty bits. If we can win today on Saturday, effectively then it just means, yeah, everybody has to beat us. Otherwise, we wrap it up before we even get to Abu Dhabi. Oh, we've got yellows, we've got yellows. Someone's got issues. Who is that? Has potentially got issues here. I think it's Verstappen. I think Verstappen again. No, someone. Oh, it's a car in the back. Ignore me. It's Carlos Sainz. I was going to say, Verstappen had back-to-back mechanical failures. I mean, he's probably been the unluckiest of your big five in terms of reliability this year. Which is probably, yeah, I mean, even if he just got like 30 points or so from those couple of mechanicals, he would have been still running comfortably second place in the championship. But yeah, Verstappen, he lives on today.
Looks like the ERS isn't functioning. The guys are working on a fix.
Oh no, I literally said coming into this one about how bad this was going to be reliability-wise. And suddenly now we are starting to struggle there. We've got no ERS unless I'm on the overtake, if I'm not mistaken. You can hear the car struggling to pull. Where on earth are we going at the final corner? Let's just take a look. I can't see anything flashing up. You just see, if I take it out of overtake, it does go back to medium now, but look how many cars have gone past us. Russell, Norris, and Alonso all making their way through. We've just got no rotation. What on earth is going on with this car? Suddenly, we go from first all the way down to fifth here, and this has always been a thing in the F1 games. If you get a failure like that, it affects the car in a very different way. It suddenly makes it very understeery and a bit underpowered as well there. It's why the AI struggle when they've got mechanical gremlins as well. But with just over 1 lap to go, we might be forced to limp to the end of this sprint. I mean, look at that. We are just dropping away. We are dropping away, and we got nothing through there. That was a very, very ragged line through the penultimate corner, but this does not bode well for the rest of the weekend. I can put another energy score in the back of the car and an MGUH and all that, but as you can see at the front of the order, both McLarens battling it out once again. We are just desperately trying to hold off our teammate Lewis Hamilton, who will play rear gunner for us in towards that first corner. He's desperately trying to defend from Stroll and Oscar Piastri there, but I mean, if this is the worst the bad luck gets this weekend, I'd rather have it in the sprint than in the real GP. And well, we won the Austria sprint earlier on this year, but it's seemingly since then my sprint race luck on this game is always pretty terrible, which is so disappointing now. I don't even know which McLaren it is leading this race at the front, but it is going to be 8 points in their back pocket, and I think in doing so, will mathematically wrap up the Constructors' title as well for the McLaren team there, but just desperately trying to navigate our way through such a rare, well, it's not even a glitch, of course, you know, it's predetermined in the game. It is going to happen from time to time, but the odds of it happening are so unbelievably low. Through the final couple of corners, though, here in the Qatar sprint, from P1 on the grid, we have not been able to convert, but still to walk away with points I think we can be pretty happy with. Which McLaren is it that is going to walk away with the victory? It is going to be George Russell, who takes the dub there ahead of Lando. Well, there we go. George Russell, 8 points then from Saturday's sprint ahead of Lando Norris and Fernando Alonso there. And Verstappen, I mean, down in P4, only a second away from the victory. So clearly all of your championship favourites are in a big dogfight this weekend. It does mean, though, that the gap has been cut down to just 20 points over Norris there. Russell still in P3, 8 points back. Alonso a further 8 points back from him. And Verstappen 7 points behind the Spaniard as well there. If we want to wrap up the title today, we can do so just by winning the feature race here. That's all we need to do, because it'll mean the gap to Norris is up to 26 points. So that would be enough as we head into the penultimate race of the year. For Verstappen to stay in it, I need to finish, I believe, 7th or lower. For Alonso to stay in it, I need to finish 5th or lower. And for George Russell to stay in it, he just needs to beat me in this penultimate race there. Norris is, you know, ideally for him, he just wants to try and finish ahead of us as well there. But yeah, that sprint race has left me quite nervous. Let's see if we can try and get another pole position. Well, we've already claimed 1 pole position this weekend. Let's hope we can try and get another here. That was exactly what we managed last season, and that ended up working quite nicely for us. So fingers crossed we can try and do the same thing again today. Obviously, we know we've got pace in the car. We know we've got good speed in the car as well. But, as always, the risk of reliability, especially... to be, you know, again, I don't kind of want to bang that drum too often, but in my brain, kind of that issue we had in the sprint was kind of there going, is that a precursor? Are we going to see bigger issues as the weekend goes on? The team have reassured us that the part has been fixed and we aren't going to see any more problems. Obviously, we can't go and change those parts now into real qualifying either, which is a little bit of a shame. But yeah, let's just see what we can do then. Again, I feel like our battle is going to be with those McLarens there. It just seems like Alonso and Verstappen trying to hang on as best as they can in the bigger picture there, as Russell, he's got a little bit of a buffer ahead of everybody else as we make our way up into Sector 3. And it's just we attack these corners, so much fun. Qatar is such a great circuit for a Formula 1 car. Through the final one of those, see we are pretty much neck and neck with George. One more corner to go. We stormed to pole by just 0.004 of a second in the sprint. I don't think we're going to do it here, though, in the main event. It is only P2. Well, there we are then. It is P2 on the grid by just 12/1000ths of a second relative to George Russell there. Lando Norris will line up in P3. And again, it is your big five in the championship that are your top five ready on the grid. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Hopefully we can try and get a win. If we do, we can just enjoy Abu Dhabi.
Welcome to Losail International Circuit, still making its history in the early stages of its period on the Formula 1 calendar. It's time for the Qatar Grand Prix. .3 miles, 16 turns, just the one DRS zone, but it's a long straight. We are in the middle of the desert. There is artificial grass around the track to stop sand being blown over the circuit, but they're still going to experience it if they go wide. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. George Russell will begin today's event in pole position, and Firestarter completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Norris, Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Hamilton, Oscar Piastri, Albon, Tsunoda, Fittipaldi, Behrman, Verstappen, Gasly, Iwasa, Perez, Vesti, Joe, Ricciardo, Ocon, and Carlos Sainz will start from the back of the grid. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race.
Well, all four of the Honda-powered cars then have taken grid penalties here. Most of them I'm not too worried about, but Max Verstappen, he will line up all the way down in P12, and he's going to need a bit of a miracle now if he wants to try and keep his championship hopes alive, of course. He was the only driver that was able to keep the hunt going right until the very final race last season in Abu Dhabi. But yeah, he's going to need a big, big miracle today if he wants to do the same. Of course, anything can happen, though, here in Losail. And like I said, I'm just going to try and see if we can storm to victory. 5 red lights here on the grid. Oh, it's a mighty long hole, but it is going to be lights out. And away we go there. Fairly clean, tidy start. Actually, Lando Norris has seemingly gone nowhere on the run into All-Star 1. So it's going to be Alonso this time round. Then what's trying to look around outside there. A less dramatic start than we saw in the Saturday sprint. And we've hung on to P2 then through the first couple of corners here. You can immediately see just the back end of the car sliding around just a little bit as we make our way up through turn 3 and turn 4. But yeah, so far, we'll take that for the start, actually. Like I said, we've got 29 laps ahead of us, so we have got a bit of time to kind of just settle into our rhythm, everything like that. But we know just how powerful that DRS is as well around this venue. So trying to stay in the range of those cars in front. Obviously, in this case, just George Russell in front is going to be really, really pivotal here. He knows he just needs to try and finish in... Well, if he wins this, he's guaranteed to go into Abu Dhabi still with an outside shot at the title. Obviously, Lando Norris, he could still finish directly behind us today, as long as I don't win this race. But him down in P5, us in P2, that would be enough to knock him out of the title hunt. And it would just be myself versus George Russell as we head into that season finale. I think for everybody else, they are just hoping that we get a mechanical failure here to try and give them the best shot that they possibly can. But tucked up behind Russell on the run back down towards turn 1. Hamilton running all the way up in P4 there, so happy with that by our teammate. We'll try and just fill George's mirrors, but not quite enough grip. Let's try then first time round with DRS there. We can just see Lando, Norris struggling to keep up with our top group as Alonso. There we go, Norris, new fastest lap of the day. Around the outside of George Russell then and back into the lead of this GP. Finish here, it is all over. Oh, here comes George that time round to the inside at turn 1. I mean, I was looking at it, we might have just had the opportunity to try and break free from Fernando Alonso a little bit further behind. He's floating right on the 1 second mark behind George Russell here, so Hamilton seems to be hanging him just a little bit.
DRS is important, so let's try and be as consistent as possible with it, please.
Yep, team want us to use a bit more of our battery, so clearly Mark was listening in and, you know, wants me to just keep using more and more of it. But Alonso really struggling at this stage. He's just hanging on by his fingernails to the DRS to Russell. And you can just see there, if he drops out of it, he's going to find it very difficult to get back inside. Like, looking at the gaps behind us then, George Russell now seemingly just starting to struggle a little bit with performance in that McLaren here. So we're just slowly opening up the gap ahead of everybody else in this GP. Seems like Lando has been able to move past Fernando as well. If you just see going through the DRS detection point, we are right on the cusp of getting George knocked out of the range. So that'll be fantastic for us here. I'm going to try and push on over these next couple of laps. Let's just see what we're capable of. Oh, we've got yellows. Who's that falling to the wayside then? Don't think it's any of our top runners. It is... I don't know who it is. There's a big gaggle of cars stuck a bit further back there. I think it's a Ferrari. I think it's Enzo Fittipaldi that is going to be our first casualty of the afternoon then. It is the young Brazilian. I'm happy you got to see the checkered flag in his home race a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, I think Russell's just clocked on to what I was trying to do. Because suddenly this lap, the gap has been shut down. Oh no, here comes George this time. As we cross onto lap 10, George Russell. And he timed this perfectly if it was the sprint race there as he powers his way through and back into P1. Of course, I know it's still early doors to be thinking about it, but it is critical that George wins this race. If things were to finish like this, not only would Russell keep himself in the hunt, but because I'd score 7 less points, he'd also keep his teammate in the fight.
Okay, be aware, the grip levels are going to start falling away soon.
Yeah, not long before we decide to dive into the pit lane, and we will once again try and go straight back past George Russell. Don't want to give him any respite in this Grand Prix. Don't want to allow him just to relax for even a single moment. And yeah, that gap to Lando is still going up further back.
Okay, the pit window's open, so let's box this lap.
Well, team want us into the pit lane then at the end of this lap, and we are still just keeping George Russell at bay at the moment there, as looks like Fernando Alonso has been the first to make the call. I'll be honest, I'm quite happy on these mediums, so I'm going to let Lewis have the first pit stop here. Verstappen update as well, of course, because he's still trying to fight his way back through. He seems to have got himself up into best of the rest. He's running in like P8 or P9. I'm sure we're going to see the likes of George Russell in probably this lap, I would assume, for George. The Lando Norris also running in P3 here, so he's going to move up into P2 then as Russell is in the pits.
Job on hitting that target, mate. Nice work. Still a long way to go, though.
I'm happy, yeah, just to extend. The pace still feels pretty good in this car at the moment. And if it gives us a few less laps on the hards towards the end, I will be quite happy. And we haven't actually had any lap data against Russell over the last couple, so I've got no idea what's been going on with the gaps. But this lap, he just seems to be taking a little bit of time out of us. I mean, still, these mediums feel pretty good at this stage of the day. It's going to be a struggle trying to get some temperature into those hards when we make our way back at the pit lane. Don't want to take any unnecessary risk. 33 miles an hour on pit lane entry there. Like I said, there's just no point risking it at this stage of the campaign. But into the box we'll go. Will we come out anywhere near close enough to Russell? Come on, let me go. Almost stalled the car. That was very odd. As we make our way then back down the pit lane, here comes George Russell making his way down the straight as well. So I think he is going to be out in front of us. But I guess the important bit is, yeah, that we've got a big enough gap ahead of Lando Norris. As there goes George. Nice and easy on the loud pedal as we make our way back out of the pit lane. But if things were to finish like this, it would be a three-way title fight heading to Abu Dhabi. Russell, myself, and Lando Norris. Well, 11 laps left then of this GP. The pace is looking pretty good at the moment as we go purple through that final sector. But Russell is pushing, and he is pushing very, very aggressively towards the end of this race. I think Alonso's ran into problems though, because he seemingly now has dropped out of the top 5 as well. Down into 7th place he goes. So it might well be that both Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen are knocked out of the title fight here today. I mean, they need it. They need basically myself, George, and Lando all to break down before the end. Well, we know if we can get back inside that DRS range of George Russell, then it is anybody's fight towards the end. And I love just kind of the odd way that Formula 1 championships can work out. It's pretty much at the moment looking like we're either going to have a title decided with a race to go, or it's going to be a three-way scrap heading into the season finale. I don't ever think that, you know, the point system they introduced in 2010 has been particularly controversial, but it does certainly, you know, that gap between first and second, how much you can walk away with for a win, really does make some interesting storylines. We are just that little bit quicker than George every time round. Nobody else has been able to compete with us two today. I think we've done it. I think we are inside the range though this time round of George Russell. So whilst I'm trying to make my racing driver excuses, look at that. There we go, detection point. And we're just 6 laps left then. We dip into the 1 minute 22s. I mean, we've just been setting low, or like pretty much 23 flats consistently over the last few laps here. But now we're going to be able to attack. The season could be decided in these final few laps. We are just able to stick to George Russell like glue through those final couple of corners right near his diffuser to make our way out of that final turn. Lap 25 of 29 about to get underway.
But don't worry about it, there's a long way to go. Chin up and let's focus till the end.
And before Mark's even finished telling me that we have failed the objective he set out for us a few laps ago, we've gone and completed it there. We were, yeah, like I said, 0.005 of a second of setting another new fastest lap. But into the lead we will go once more. Can we hang on? 3 laps left then. Here comes George Russell back to the inside in towards turn 1. And this is a critical lap for us in this race because if I'm not mistaken, this is the last lap that we could end up having a mechanical failure here. I don't believe the game will give one to you inside the final 2 laps.
Sensors. I don't think you need to be worried, just some bad data, so keep doing what you're doing. I'll let you know if we notice any genuine problems.
Yeah, that is not the time for that radio message, Mark. The timing on that was absolute comedy. But are we going to be able to stick with George Russell here with just 2.5 laps to go? It is win it or bin it, I think, for both of us, especially for George. I've still got a bit of time left in the championship. He has to beat me here if he wants any chance at his first world title. We, however, looking for our second, and if I'm not mistaken, if we win this world title this season, we will become the first driver since Juan Manuel Fangio to win back-to-back titles, but racing for different manufacturers. Alonso came close in 06 and 07. Jenson Button came close in 2009 and 2010. But we would become the first driver ever, well, obviously since Fangio, to be able to finally repeat that feat there. 2 laps left. I don't believe now we can get a mechanical failure in this GP, but I've been known to curse myself before, and we are back in front. As we make our way then into Sector 3 for the penultimate time, has George Russell got enough to really try and attack us through down in towards turn 1? He knows that's basically his last opportunity to really try and do anything here. Lando Norris, he has been no match for us. Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen, so much bad luck for the pair of them throughout the entirety of the campaign. They're a little bit wide through that final turn. But as we put the power down, George Russell, we are trying to use the battery against him. But look at that Russell. He's got the straight line speed and passed us in towards turn 1. He'll go once again. Be careful not to pick up front wing damage. They're running into the back of him. How many times I've done that this season? But George Russell, that is a pivotal move to keep his title hopes alive as we head towards Abu Dhabi for the season finale there. Will we be able to do anything to try and come back at him through this final lap though? We'll be looking for any opportunity we possibly can just to try and fling a move somewhere. But the problem is, of course, that turn 1 is really your only overtaking opportunity around this venue. Unless Russell makes a mistake now, he might just have not only kept his own, but also his teammates' championship hopes alive with that move. McLaren, they could be on to bring both drivers to Abu Dhabi with an outside shot at the World Championship, unless we can do something, anything, in towards these final few corners. I'm pretty certain Verstappen and Alonso, they are both out of the hunt there, but as we get as close as we can to Russell's diffuser, I just don't think there's going to be an opportunity unless we can try and look for something in towards the final corner. Russell will defend that through the final corner for the first time since Bahrain. George Russell is going to win a Grand Prix, and in doing so, keeps his hopes alive. Well, there we go then. Like I said, I'm pretty certain that is George Russell's first win since the season opener back in Bahrain. He has just been so brutally consistent all year that he will head to Abu Dhabi with a shot at the world title. I think that's also the first time all year that it's been myself, George, and Lando on the podium. I know we've had obviously two of the three of us on quite a few occasions, but I don't think at any point we've had all three of us on the podium together this year there. So it is going to be a British 1, 2, 3 in the race results. As you can see, Russell takes the dub by just quarter of a second over ourselves. Lando, Norris struggled for pace against us there, with Stroll in 4th, Hamilton in 5th ahead of Piastri. Verstappen, it was a valiant effort to recover to P7 ahead of Tsunoda there, and Alonso definitely had issues down in P9 ahead of Alexander Albon. And well, I must admit, I was very nervous, but we have survived this weekend's Grand Prix. Only Fittipaldi who failed to see the checkered flag. But what does that do, though, to our championship hopes? Well, it means Alonso and Verstappen, even if there were double points in Abu Dhabi, they are out of it here. But there is a 22-point gap between myself and George, and a 24-point gap between myself and Lando Norris. It does mean that all three of us are locked in. We will be the Championship 3 come the end of the year. But we need to finish, I believe, 8th in Abu Dhabi. And obviously, George or Lando, you know, for the pair of them, it is a must-win situation. Otherwise, irrespective of what happens to us, we will be world champion there. Constructors-wise, though, it does mean McLaren have wrapped that up. I think they had done it earlier on in the weekend, to be completely honest. We have a 25-point buffer over Red Bull, so I'd like to try and hang on to that between now and the end of the year as well there. But just one race to go. 3 drivers in with a shot at the title. Anything can happen when we go to Abu Dhabi. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Make sure you get yourself subscribed. You are not going to want to miss that season finale. I will see you guys very, very soon.